So, this morning we're starting a new series called Victory. And we're talking about the difference between winning and victory. So, what's kind of gripping about the whole thought is that sometimes we think that winning is victory because we win. So, right now the Bears ended the season. What was it? 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. Now they won. They won their last game. Okay, they won, but they were not victorious. Okay, that's not a victorious season. So some people were looking at the end of the win and saying, "Wow, I'm about to lose my job." That's not victorious when you win and then you lose your job. That's not victorious. So there's all these things that we look at in terms of winning. And see, when we are looking at winning, we're looking at achieving something. All right? And the thing that we're looking at achieving may not also necessarily be the victorious thing, a victorious moment that we want. But what it does is it sets up for us a minor goal. There are major goals and minor goals. The minor goal is, hey, I want to win this thing. Okay? But at what cost are you winning? You see, there's all sorts of battles that we face in life and challenges that we face in life, and we make decisions on whether it's worth it or not to fight the battle. We make decisions on whether or not the battle is something that is going to help us if we win the battle. But there are moments in our lives when we have to understand that if we are going to be victorious, there's some battles we're going to win, and there's some battles we're going to lose. And that losing is not necessarily mean that you're a loser. You could be victorious in the end because you have an ultimate goal. And that ultimate goal is what you're trying to get to. It's not this moment. See, we live in the moment. We live in the here and now. Many of us do not look at the future of what the future holds or what the future can be because we can only see what's around us right here, right now. You say, I can't see the forest because of the trees. All the trees are in my way. So I can't see that I'm in the Amazon because I'm looking at the trees that are right around me. But when you look at it from a higher up landscape, when you begin to look down and you see all these trees that come together to form this forest, you begin to understand that, wow, that's a forest. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where, financially, we can't see that we can be debt-free because all we can see is the debt that we have, the bills that are coming in before us. That's all we can see in our face, are the bills. We can't see that we can't be debt-free because all we see is this red piece of paper when we open up this envelope. And so we live in places of worry, we live in places of fear, we live in places of doubt because of the here and the now. We're not always looking at the future. And it was so interesting to me, and I sent this out in the email yesterday, that at the beginning of the year, it's 2020, people make New Year's resolutions. And they have all these great resolutions that you come up with. Now, I just wonder, have you made resolutions yet? Or have you given up on resolutions? People make these resolutions. I have my resolutions, but I'm not going to tell you because if I don't make it, I don't want everybody to know. But there's these New Year's resolutions. And so what we have found is that, after 30 days, less than 25% of the people that have made New Year's resolutions still keep them. By the end of the year, less than 8% of the people have actually kept their New Year's resolution. So we start out strong. Yesterday I took my daughter to the doctor because she was not feeling well, and we get to the doctor's office, and the doctor's office has a health club center in the building. And we couldn't find any place to park. So I sent her in. I said, I'll find a place to park. I went through the lot. There was no place to park in the lot. I circled around the building. There was no place to park around the building. And then when I got in to talk to the doctor, I said, I'm sorry, I just couldn't find a place to park. And she said, oh, well, you know what? It is the beginning of the year. Everybody's doing their health club memberships. Don't worry. It'll be freed up in another couple of weeks. So the thing is, we look at the here and now. And the reason why there's such a fall off from those New Year's resolutions is because people are living in the moment that they are in right now. I want to get in shape, or I want to play this instrument, or I want to get a better job. So I'm gonna change my behaviors. Or one of my favorites, my sister sent this to me this morning. Her and her husband are going to try being vegan for the next 30 days, and I said, good luck on that one. We have these aspirations, and we want to achieve them, but how deeply do we really want them? How deeply is it ingrained in us that I want to achieve this, I want to grab hold to this? Because what happens for us is we get caught up in moments, and we don't get caught up in the actual victory. What does it take to get to the victory? What does it take not just to win in this moment? Because it is a win when you actually say, I'm going to make this resolution, and you go to the gym and you get on that treadmill and you do 5 minutes on the treadmill. That's a win because you actually did it. But it doesn't mean that you have lost 30 pounds. It means you broke a sweat. So now you have to get to that place of victory, which means that there's a battle to get up and to be committed to do this thing day in and day out. It's not an easy thing to do because it requires a change in our mindset. It requires a change in our lifestyle so that we can actually achieve the victory. And so for many of us, the struggle is the commitment part. It's called how bad do we want it? How bad do we want it? I remember when the Bulls were winning their championships, and maybe one day we'll see our Chicago Bulls win a championship again. No. Okay, well, I'm a Christian and I'm a minister. I have faith. But I remember when Michael Jordan was heading up the team, and they were getting on the plane. They were getting on the plane to win the championship. This was their moment they could win the championship. And he gets on the plane and he walks around on the plane and he says, listen, anybody that's not going here to win this championship, you can get off right now. He was ready to kick them off of the plane because his goal was not to win the 82 games. They had won the games to get them there. His goal was now to be victorious. His goal now was all the work that we put in, everything that we have done, every battle that we've won, every battle that we've lost has brought us to this moment where we can take home the trophy. And if we want to take home the trophy, I want people around me that want that trophy just as bad as I do. How bad do you want it? There's a story in the Bible of Esau and Jacob. And I love the story about Esau and Jacob because in Esau and Jacob, we see so much. And so for this series, Victory, we're actually going to be tracking Esau and Jacob's story because it's a story that really takes us from battle to battle to battle to victory. And it gives us an understanding of looking at what it means to actually get to a place of victory through all of the little battles. But in the beginning of their story, you have to understand that Isaac and Rebekah, their father and mother, were going through some struggles. You see, Rebekah didn't have any children. And this was, in that day and age, this was something that was a shame on her. We look at it totally different today. But that was a shame on her then. And so in that moment, she was struggling. And so her husband prays for her that she will have a child. And when he prays for her, guess what? God hears her prayer. Hears his prayer. And God gives her a child. But it's not just one child. God blesses her with two, with twins. So in Genesis chapter 25, Let me just read starting at verse 21. I'm going to read verses 21 through 23. It says here, Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." So now, inside of her, she has twins. Now, I'll just say this. When my wife was pregnant with my son, it was a lot easier when she had my daughter. But when she was pregnant with my son was kicking and moving all the time. I mean, we were scared of what was going to come out. Because he just was, her stomach was always moving and he just couldn't stay still. She couldn't sleep. Everywhere she go, he's just moving. You know how you put your hand on the belly to feel the baby move? You didn't have to put your hand on the belly to feel the baby move. You could see him trying to get out. So there's this jostling that's taking place within her stomach. She knows that something is going on. See, not only has she been blessed to be able to have a child, she's been blessed to have two children, and then the Lord says to her that this is not just any birth that's going to take place. There are basically two nations within you. There are two peoples within you. And there's something special that is happening within you. And so sometimes what we don't understand is when we are going through the struggles, when we're going through the battles, and we're going through those moments in our lives where we're waiting for something good to happen, sometimes that good thing that happens, we don't understand what it is when it's happening. We don't understand what's going on in that moment when it takes place. But we know that something is going on. See, she understood that she was pregnant. But when these things started moving inside of her, and when they started kind of battling inside of her, trying to get some elbow room inside of her, she was like, "God, something is going on. I need to understand what's happening, what's taking place." And even though God explains it to her, guess what? She doesn't fully get it. She doesn't fully understand it. She doesn't understand it because if she did understand it, some of the things that she would do in the future, she would not have done. When we are in a place to get the win does not mean, and I'm going to say this over and over again, the win does not mean victory. The win is a momentary thing. And remember I said, we live in the moment. We live in the moment. We get excited about the moment. But when we are faced with looking at the future, sometimes the moment doesn't take as great of an importance. There's a young lady right now who has a child that has been in and out of the hospital for the last 10 months. The child's only 10 months old. And the child has been struggling to survive. And the mother was consumed with just being there in the hospital with that child. And the consumption of thought that surrounded the entire family was this child was not going to make it. This child was destined at some point to give up life. And so they were living in the moment. They did not have the hope of a future that was to come. They didn't see down the road. All they could see was what is happening, what needs to take place right now. And so the word had spread that this child was not going to make it. And so any day now, any moment now. And so people were constantly waiting to get bad news. And people that asked what was going on were expecting bad news to come. Well, the mother started looking not at the present. The mother started looking at the future. Because every day this child was surviving. Every moment that this child was still breathing. Every moment that this child still opened his eyes that mother could begin to see that there was something more that was going on. And she stopped living in the moment and she started looking at the future of what could be. And in looking at the future, what she discovered was there was somebody that could help her child. There was a hospital that could help her child that was not in the same city, not in the same state where she was, but they could help her child to survive and live a full life. She found that place that could help her, but it was because God was showing her the bigger picture, not the momentary thing that was happening in front of her. God was taking her to a place to see something more that was taking place. You see, with Rebecca, if Rebecca could really see the future, if Rebecca could really see the future of what was to come, she would understand that what she was about to give birth to was a future of two peoples. It was a future of two nations. It was a future that was going to take place that she was a part of the legacy of. But she didn't see that. What she saw was, I got my babies. She didn't see what they could be. She didn't see the future. And, it's ironic because, when you're going to school, and sometimes when you're going to school and you're a minority, going to school, you come across teachers that don't see your future. You come across people that look at you and say, this is your limitation of what you can be. This is the limitation of what you can do. You can't do any more than this. But it's not up to the people around you to see it. It's up to you personally to be able to see that there's a future for you. And it's up to you to say that I really want this and I want to go after it. And so here in Genesis, this is what happens starting in verse 24 in chapter 25. When the time came for her to give birth, for Rebekah to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Now, I want you to get this, because this is a part that sometimes we don't really pay attention to. We say, oh yeah, Jacob's holding on to Esau's heel. No, it's not that Jacob's holding on to Esau's heel. He's fighting to come out first. He's fighting to be number one. And as they're coming out, he's grabbing his brother's heel, not to hold on to him so he can get out with him. He's grabbing him to pull him back. He's grabbing him so that he can be the one to come out first. See, even in the womb, there's something inside of him that says, there's something that I want. I want to win. I want to be victorious. I want it. And so he grabs that heel and tries to push Esau back. Now, I want you to imagine this just for a moment, because we all experience this at some point in time in our lives when there's somebody that wants what we have. Have you experienced that? When there's somebody that wants what you have, they think that you have it good and they want what you have, and so they'll do whatever they can. They'll scrap, they'll fight to get what you have so they can have possession of it. And so here, we see this happening in the womb. This was a part of Jacob's personality before he came out of the womb. Some of us are born with that fierce, competitive nature that we want to win, that we want to be victorious. It's born in us in everything that we do. And so we strive for it, we fight for it. We don't like to lose. We're competitive. I've shared this before. I play basketball, and so I do basketball on Monday nights with my league. And we range in age, but we were playing the other day before the season ended, and we're playing, and I'm playing against a guy I played with before. We're around the same age, so neither of us are super skilled. I mean, we're not going to the NBA. But I was guarding him, and I was blocking him at every turn. And so he's got the ball, he's come up against me, and I've had at least a couple of blocks and a steal off of him. and he comes up to me and he turns as though he's going to pass it to somebody else. He shoots the ball through my legs and runs on the other side and scores. I said, what? So the competitive nature in me rose up. It's like, you won't be doing that again. But inside of us, we all have a little competitive nature. Even those that say they don't. You don't like to lose. And so here, what we're seeing with what's happening with Esau and Jacob, Jacob from the very get-go wants to win. He wants to be in Esau's place. The mother cannot see this yet, because the mother is just looking at what's happening in the here and the now. And so what happens with their relationship? Because of Jacob, their relationship is competitive from day one. And they grow up and they go along their ways. You know, it's kind of like your brothers and sisters, your cousins, whomever. You kind of grow up and you go your way, and you develop into your own person. And so you have your own skill sets and you have your own things that you're good at. So Esau was good at hunting and bringing the bacon home, if you will. He was good at that. Jacob was a mama's boy. He was a mama's boy to his heart. He loved his mama and his mama loved him. You know, and we're not going to go into mama's boy stuff, but there was this nature of Jacob was that he wanted to possess what Esau had. He wanted it at whatever cost to be able to get it. Jacob, I want you to understand this, Jacob was always looking at the future. He was always looking at the future. Esau was always living in the moment. Esau was the guy who was always broke. The family member that's always asking to borrow money. Esau was the one that was always in need. But Jacob was always looking at, how do I plot and plan for the future? You know, Esau was going to just deal with what he had to deal with. Jacob was looking at, okay, where am I going to invest my stocks, my bonds? How am I going to plan out and plot out my future? And we see this as we continue to go through chapter 25. Starting in verse 27, it says, the boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Now, I want you to understand the dynamic before we get into this. The father loves one, the mother loves the other. So the competitive nature between the two is reinforced from what was already in the womb, was reinforced by the parents after they came out of the womb. They pitted them against each other. You know, and it's funny because parents have to understand that you have to love both of your children or all of your children equally. I have a friend that said, if you have one more kid, we're going to nickname you all the Brady Bunch. But they love all of their kids the same. They don't treat them any differently. They make sure that they're all nurtured in the way that they need to be nurtured, and they give them the time that they need to give them. But here, in this situation, one parent says, I'm going to take this twin and you take that twin. This is one I'm going to love, this is one you're going to love. And so it builds and reinforces a competitive nature with them where the other wanted to outdo the other. The other one wanted to fend for themselves over and against the other. There was this constant battle that was going on. Now I want you to understand, here's what happens next. It says that once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He was hungry. He was starving. He needed something in his belly. And it says here that he said to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. That is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, first, sell me your birthright. Now, this is a pot of stew. He's not giving him the whole pot. I want you to get this. He's asking for some of the stew. He's not asking for the whole pot. He said, can you give me some of that red stew? So he's giving him a bowl or a cup or whatever it is of the stew. But if you want it, you really hungry, give me your birthright. Now, this again is the living in the moment kind of deal. You know, you're living in the moment. So for him, the win was, I'm hungry. If I'm no longer hungry, then I won. Sure, you can have my birthright. So he says to, in verse 32, Esau says to Jacob, look, I am about to die. Esau said, what good is the birthright to me if I'm dead? I'm hungry. Dude is hungry. I want you to know, he's just hungry. Okay? He's not really dying. He's overreacting to the moment, to the situation he's in. Do you know people like that overreact to the moment, to the situation they're in? You know, they think that it's way bigger than what it is, and they don't understand that this is just a step along the way. This is not the end point. This is just a step along the way. And so I'm famished, I'm hungry. But Jacob said, swear to me first. So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. After he does all of this, again, Jacob is looking at the future. The birthright is only good once the father is gone. He's looking at the future. He's not looking at the moment. He's not looking at tomorrow. He's not looking at the day after tomorrow. He's looking at the future. He says, but Jacob said, swear to me first. So he swore on an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He gave him some bread and some lentil stew. You just sold your birthright. You didn't even get the whole loaf of bread. You didn't even get the whole pot of stew that you could save some leftovers for the day after. You just got something for this moment, for this time. And it says he ate and drank and then got up and left. He left it all on the table. He left it all right there. It says, so Esau then despised his birthright. He hated his birthright because he no longer had it. He gave it up because he lived in the moment. His patience was not there to go beyond the moment. You see, it takes patience to go beyond the moment. It takes something within you to say, you know what, I'm going to live beyond what's happening right here, right now. That today is not the end. Today is just the beginning. There is something more that is to happen and more that is to take place. But we're not very patient. We want everything right here, right now. But in order to become victorious, you have to show some patience. You have to show the willingness to wait for it. Because each battle, each challenge that you face is just something along the way. You see, for Jacob, he saw the challenge that he had, number one, was he had to get that birthright. Nobody tells him, go get that birthright. In him, he says, I want that birthright. Because that birthright is part of my ultimate plan to get to victory. And so in this, it appears that there are two winners. There's the winner of Esau because he got what he wanted at the moment, at that time. There's the winner of Jacob because he walks away with the birthright. But ultimately, who really won? It was Jacob because he got the birthright. He walked away with the birthright. You see, Esau was not patient enough to do what needed to be done. He was not patient enough to say, listen, you're my brother. Now, come on, man, give me some food. You know I'm hungry. And the food that you're cooking is the food that I went out and got. I did the shopping. I paid for it. And you're going to sell it to me? Patience. Patience is important. Many of us don't have patience. Many of us don't know how to wait. Many of us play short games and not long games. So I like the game of golf. And when I started playing golf, I couldn't get anybody to go play with me. Nobody was patient enough to go and play with this new guy that was just picking up a golf club that was swinging it like a baseball bat and not like a golf club. There was no patience to work with me on that. And so what I did was I said, well, that's fine. You all don't have to play with me. I'll go play with myself. So it was kind of boring playing by myself. So my daughter was 7 years old and she was out of school. I got a little bitty set of clubs and we went out there together to play. But one of the things that I learned in the last 8 years that we've been playing is that in order to win, you win a hole, but you don't win the game. You see, every time you play golf, there are 18 holes that you have to win at in order to be victorious. But each hole that you come up against is a challenge. Each hole that you come up against it's a moment for you to reset yourself. Because you can lose at one hole, but you can win at the next. It's how your wins mount up that gets you to the place of victory. But it calls for patience, because when you watch them on television, they say it's so boring, but it's actually, when you understand what they have to go through mentally to be able to sit there and position themselves, to be able to get that club up, swing it, do their follow through, and send that ball way, way, way down the fairway, it takes some effort. It takes some concentration and it takes some patience, because when I first started, I was rushing it. I wasn't positioning myself. I was looking at the ball, I was like, whack, whack, not finishing the swing. I didn't have the patience for it. I didn't understand that it takes patience to set yourself up to be victorious. I didn't understand that it takes patience in order to get to that eventual place of victory in your life. You see, the game of golf began to teach me life lessons, not just teach me how to hit a ball and get it in the cup. I began to understand that if I really want to get to the places where I want to be, I have to be looking at the long game. I have to be looking at, we got 18 holes. Yeah, I messed up on this one, but I got another one I get a fresh start at. Every battle that you go through, you may not win. Every battle that you face, you may not be the one that comes out on top, but every battle you face, you get something to learn from, and it helps you build up to that place of getting to the victory that God wants you to have in your life. But it takes that patience. This is the story of Jacob. Jacob was patient. He was patient. His patience began to lead him to the places where he could begin to see victory. It was his patience. But when you are not patient, you find yourself in a place of frustration. So in the instance where we were looking at Esau, if Esau was a golfer and he was on the green, Esau's like, okay, I gotta get home. I gotta get this. Esau's just shooting that ball across. But Jacob is saying, wait a minute now. Let me set this up. I see where the hole is. I see what I need to do. And I need to position myself to be able to do what I need to do. And as he does it, he's trying to get his follow through. And then his focus is not on just winning. His focus is on, okay, I want to get the victory. And if I'm going to get the victory, I got to do what it takes to get that victory. So whatever I need to do, however much practice I need, whatever it takes to get there, I'm going to do what it takes to get to that place of victory. And here's the thing about it, and I'm going to wrap up with this. In Romans chapter 9, verses 10 through 11, it says, not only that, but Rebekah's children were conceived at the same time by our father, Isaac. Yet before the twins were born or had done anything good or bad, in order that God's purpose and election might stand, not by works, but by him who calls, she was told the older will serve the younger. I want you to hear this again, one more time. It says, yet before the twins were born or had done anything good or bad, for any of the stuff that happened between them, in order that God's purpose and election might stand, not by works, but by him who calls, she was told the older will serve the younger. Jacob's journey that he goes through is a part of God's purpose. Esau's journey he goes through is a part of God's purpose. The challenges that we face in life, God knows. They are a part of God's ultimate purpose to get us to the place of victory. Amen? If we want to get there, we got to be patient. If we want to get there, we got to work at it. But we have to understand that every battle, every challenge, every struggle is a part of God's purpose.